Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you don't have to worry about being very judgmental because we do it all for you. Russell Quirk is here, Candice Holdsworth is here, Ben Habib as well, and Samara Gill. I mean, it's been another fantastic week, hasn't it, Russell? And this is going to be a tough Plank of the Week, I can tell you that. But kick us off with Dawn Butler, why don't you?
So Dawn Butler, the race baiter,
yes.
I have to say, once again.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got form for this, of course.
She has.
So she, on news that Kemi Badenoch had won the election for the Conservative group leadership, instead of congratulating her and saying, hey, well done, and, you know, congratulations, instead decided to retweet something from a chap by the name of Nels Abbey, who's a kind of Nigerian race agitator, frankly.
Yes. He's written some kind of book about racism, which is actually pretty racist.
Yeah, well here's the thing, right? I guess here's the discussion. You know, is it racist to say that a black person effectively is the face of white supremacism and blackface? Yeah. Well, I say yes, on the basis that if you assume that everybody has to have a particular opinion, say things and do things just because of their skin colour. That's the very definition of racism.
Also, if you're defining somebody who is actually black and telling them that they're wearing blackface, isn't that kind of problematic as well?
Yeah. So it seems OK for the likes of Dawn Butler and others, you know, David Lammy, etc., to say whatever they want about black people, Asian people, white people, without kind of, you know, fear of any kind of retribution. But of course, as soon as somebody on the centre-right, anybody at all, says anything that could be remotely seen to be a tiny bit racist, they have to be cancelled. Yeah. They have to be cancelled. But the interesting thing, of course, with Dawn Butler is, not only has she got form for this, Keir Starmer, guess what he's done about it?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Right. Even though he's got form for suspending Rupert Hook, he was suspended.
Because she said, didn't
she? I can't remember exactly what she said.
I'll tell you what she said. Kwasi Kwarteng, he is superficially black.
That's right,
but
superficially black.
This is what they always say.
I mean, he is black. I don't know what the word superficially black means.
Dawn Butler accepted Kemi was genuinely black. Yeah. Just that she's a white supremacist.
But not, I guess what she's saying is not inside as such.
And let's not forget, he also suspended, what's her face? You know, Diane Abbott.
Oh,
no, Diane Abbott, but for being anti-Semitic. Yeah. She wrote that letter to the Observer saying that
Diane Abbott should be
basically you couldn't be racially discriminated against
but he's also
if you're a Jew.
But Diane Abbott should be suspended for being Diane Abbott.
That's true. Yeah.
But he's also taken the whip away from, I think, 7 Labour MPs in the first few weeks of government, just basically because they didn't vote his way.
That's right.
It seems to be if you don't vote with him, you get.
And you know what?
If you're a racist, it's fine.
The explanation from people in the Labour Party was, well, the thing is, he doesn't want to suspend her because now he's the Prime Minister. He didn't mind suspending people when he was in opposition, which is one, not true, and also, you know, two, makes no sense at all. Yeah. So that's why apparently he hasn't done anything about it.
Yeah. So no, I think not only is she a plank, she's kind of it's racism of the week as well as being plank of the week.
She should be a racist of the week.
Yes.
I mean, we don't have that show yet, but we could start it up next week. Idea. You know, let's have a look at Dawn's campaign to try and get her MP seat back. This was just before the election. She recorded this.
If you like, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days because I gotta go. Wish you had D-Day, where did he go? Say wish you had D-Day, where did he go? Like don't let a liar run the show. Like don't let a liar run the show. If you like me, let me know, let me out the shadow. Got 21 days before I gotta go.
And she got re-elected.
Can I remind you
Amazing.
of the other thing that she did? You remember a year or so ago, she was stopped by the police in South London somewhere.
Yes.
And she cited it was racist.
Yes.
Even though it turns out the windows of the car were tinted, so you couldn't see inside, and she wasn't driving.
Yeah. Exactly. Unbelievable,
She's
isn't it?
a total
and she had to sort of walk that one back as well. Yeah. But, you know, Kemi Badenoch becoming the leader of the opposition was not only greeted by some in the Labour Party badly, it was also not greeted great by some in the Tory Party. Let's have a look at Robert Jenrick and his wife applauding the news that Kemi Badenoch's the new leader. Now, you can see her clapping there. Oh, no, she stopped clapping. She's had enough. Doesn't want to start. No. And then she notices that people are looking at her. Oh, better start clapping again.
Well, do you know, that was a Samara Gill eye roll.
Yeah, it was.
I think she learned from the best, didn't she?
The other thing that we should also remember is that, you know, despite the criticism of people like David Lammy and Dawn Butler and so on, the Conservative Party, I think, have now elected 4 female leaders. They've had a black Chancellor, a black Home Secretary. Labour, anything from you?
Right.
0.
Well, they've had Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister as well. Let's not forget. I mean, you know, the Labour Party have just got Keir Starmer. And I'm not even sure he's human.
Is he diverse?
Well, he's not human, is he? He's just sort of robotic.
Even parliamentarians who got up and congratulated Kemi for being the first black woman leader of the Conservative Party. I mean, I see that as racist too.
Yeah.
Why don't they just get up and say, well done, Kemi?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She said, I mean, why should we... This is why when we made fun of Rachel Reeves last week, when she got up in the House and declared that she was the first woman Chancellor. Well, who cares? Well, are we not living in, like, 1824?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, a woman.
Well,
crikey. How on earth did that happen?
Every time they chuck out a female, cite a female in a new senior position, I keep thinking, well, what about Queen Elizabeth I?
Yeah.
Who set the foundation?
They've taken her portrait.
Empire.
No, they don't like her. They've taken her portrait down in Downing Street.
quite.
And replaced it.
She identified as a man.
They've replaced her picture with that woman from the Communist Party.
Oh, yeah. Red Ellen,
Yeah, they don't like her. They don't want to talk about her.
Red Ellen, you a fan?
Oh, no, not at all. Not even a little bit. I was on Plank last week, furious about Elizabeth I's portrait being taken down.
Absolutely shocking. Let's have a look at David Tennant. He's former Doctor Who, of course. He doesn't like Kemi Badenoch either.
I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
Yeah, so that's nice, isn't it? Usual Lefty. Yeah, that sounds a bit racist, doesn't it?
Yeah,
he could be on racist of the week.
Sexist too,
It's definitely
If Nigel Farage said that,
Yeah.
what would happen?
I know.
If Nigel Farage said that, that's definitely racist.
Yeah, it's definitely
David
racist,
Tennant
yeah.
says it, it's just...
Well, he said it also at Lovey's convention, so they're all clapping him for getting some award for acting like a child.
But it's all about diversity and inclusion until it's a Conservative.
Yes.
And then it doesn't count. And then you're a white supremacist, you can shut up, you get everything that's wrong with you.
And
I don't
that's
think I've ever met a white supremacist. Have you? Has anyone ever met one? I don't think I know anyone who's a white supremacist. I'm pretty sure Kemi Badenoch isn't one. I interviewed her.
If you're
show any
white...
signs of it.
I don't think so.
She was wearing a sheep when she get no. Also, the great thing about this David Tennant thing was on the day that Kemi won the leadership contest, J.K. Rowling put out a tweet that said, "Thoughts and prayers with David Tennant." It's a very sad day. Candice, over to you.
Yes, so
This is good.
So this is amazing. So this week has been a momentous week in politics. Donald Trump is back as president.
Yeah.
And of course, cue all the absolute lefty meltdowns.
Yes.
So all the catastrophizing political pundits who are like, this is a dark day.
Yeah.
You'll hear that a lot, dark
Yeah.
days.
Yes.
The sky's going to fall down. This is the return of fascism. It's been like exactly who you would expect it to be. Carla Denia from the Green Party, Sadiq Khan, William Hague from the Conservatives, interestingly enough, also saying that Trump represented a total threat to American freedom and democracy. I think they're starting to sound like the boy who cried wolf now.
They really are.
They've said this for 8 years, that everything's going to happen, the sky's going to fall in, and I think people just aren't buying it anymore.
There's quite a long list, isn't there?
It's a very long list. Let's start, actually, because we've got quite a lot on this. So we're going to start off with Carla Denia, who's the leader of the Green Party.
I know that, like me, many of you will be feeling fearful this morning. A convicted criminal, a fascist who does not respect the rule of law, is once again set to become leader of the most powerful country in the world. So on this dark day, I want to say that we stand in solidarity with all those who dreaded this moment and must now live with its consequences.
Oh, shut up.
You notice that she's
Honestly, what a melt.
notice she's wearing a poppy, but also a white poppy.
Yes.
Which this year is signifying your sympathy with the people in Gaza, apparently.
It used to be a pacifist.
It used to be a pacifist poppy, but now, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's now everything to do with the people in Gaza, which is kind of unusual, because the pacifists don't really include Hamas, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't call Hamas pacifist.
Has it got written on the back of it, except the hostages?
Yeah, or sausages. The Guardian have been very helpful as well. They've said that they will offer counselling if anyone who works at the Guardian needs it, because of the fact that
I thought this was a parody.
Yeah,
I saw this.
and I've actually got a piece here from Catherine Viner, who's written a piece in the Guardian. She's the editor. How the Guardian will stand up to 4 more years of Donald Trump. I'm sure he really cares about it. Oh, my God, what are the Guardian going to do? You know, and of course,
Elon Musk should buy it.
Of course,
buy the
actually, Elon Musk should. That's a great idea. He should buy it. Or Jeff Bezos could buy it and team it up with the Washington Post. That'd be even better. Yeah. But of course, it ends up with a begging letter, because that's all the Guardian can ever do. Despite the fact that they're run by the Scott Trust, despite the fact that they're a major sort of, tax-free charitable status. There is an offshore element. There's also a bit of a slavery element to it. They've investigated themselves, and they did a big kind of, skewering out of their own internal bowel
They didn't
system.
cancel themselves.
They didn't cancel themselves, but they were very sorry. They did a whole, a whole series on, how the Guardian owners originally might have had something to do with the South Sea Bubble Company, and they all then, But here's how it ends, right? It says this: it's going to be an enormous challenge, and we need your help. We will stand up to these threats from Donald Trump on press freedom, but it will take brave, well-funded, independent journalism. And if you take reporting that can't be leaned upon by a billionaire owner, terrified of retribution from a bully in the White House, please send us some money. It always ends with "please send us some money," doesn't it?
Yes.
Catherine Viner, who's on approximately £500,000 or £600,000 a year.
Yeah.
No, it's like what our colleague Isabel Oakeshott said on Twitter today. She was like, no wonder The Guardian never makes any money because they're constantly coming cup in hand every time there's some sort of tragedy and just saying, we're trying to preserve journalism, we're trying to preserve journalism. No, you're not. You're just coming in with your woke virtue signalling, making us feel bad.
I read somewhere, so correct me if I'm wrong, this might not actually be true, but I really hope it is that The Guardian distribute, 100,000 copies, and about 90,000 of those go into the public sector.
Yeah.
So they're bought by public departments.
Yeah, exactly right. And also, the idea that they're in some way responsible popular journalism that stands up for all things that are good. They employ Irene Jones. What the hell are they talking about? But let's talk about Rory Stewart, because for me, he was the star of the week. He was one of the pundits who is part of this ludicrous new Gary Lineker-inspired, sort of podcast brigade. He does a podcast with Alistair Campbell, that nice man who took us to war on a false premise, and he's still knocking around. They seem to be making an awful lot of money. But he put a tweet out, basically, and was consistently saying that all of the pundits were wrong. It wasn't going to be a close-run thing. This was actually all about Kamala Harris. She will win comfortably, and then he tells you why. Young women like Kamala, that will be the vote. He says, ignore the polls. They are herding after past misses. He thinks young black males are going to vote for her. Trump has lost ground since 2016. He was full of the joys of spring about it, even to the extent where he said he would put a large amount of money behind it. I think he bet about 100,000 quid on Kamala Harris winning.
That's hilarious.
And of course, unfortunately for him,
Shoshana's very happy
it didn't
about
quite
that
work
one.
out. But let's have a look at what he said when the results came in.
I got it totally wrong. I thought Kamala Harris would win, and I believed she would win comfortably. I thought it would be over quite quickly. Despite the polls showing 50-50, I think I was wrong because I'm an optimist. And I hate the idea of being right pessimistically. I think you can be a false prophet and right.
So he's now redefined the words right and wrong, right? So he wasn't actually wrong because he got it wrong. He was wrong because he was hoping that she would win.
Yeah.
In which case, he's not really wrong.
Which also makes him a wonderful person.
Yes.
So basically, he had no factual basis whatsoever for the forecast. It was just that he wanted it to be true.
Yes.
That's it.
He called himself a prophet as well in that clip. He goes, "Yeah, it was a false prophet. I knew that I was going to be right, but And he also talked about young black men getting out and voting and how badly he sort of predicted that. What do you know about young black men, Rory Stewart? Honestly,
I know.
Come on.
They're so smug.
And for anyone saying, "Well, hang on a sec, Rory Stewart's an ex-Conservative," you're talking about lefty tears. Lefty's kind of lamenting. No, believe me, Rory Stewart is a massive lefty.
He's always been a lefty.
Massive lefty.
So are many Conservatives.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was what let them down. But part of the thing I love about that clip is Alistair Campbell's face. Literally like a hatchet. And this is what we've been seeing ever since Trump got elected. Emily Maitlis, face like
I don't want to jump the gun here, but we're going to talk about Emily Maitlis.
We are going to talk about Emily Maitlis, so we can come back to all of that. We've got another clip for you, though. This is Boris Johnson, because amazingly, Channel 4 thought it would be a good idea to have Boris Johnson, Stormy Daniels, Emily Maitlis and Krishnan Gurumurthy on the same panel. This is how it went.
Channel 4 News, run by Ian Katz, sitting here doing the same old stunt that you tried in 2004, where they're taking a massively skewed approach to a US election.
I'm trying you to account for your actions.
Hang on, I'm not standing for election here. Am I Stormy? Am I standing for election?
Stormy Daniels, why is she qualified to be on that?
I know.
By taking her clothes off.
She was acting disgustingly that entire night.
I made the mistake once of looking on her Twitter. Crikey.
Only one?
Yeah, but it's not just about, making political points, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But they're mistaking their little echo chamber for reality. And what they do when they get it wrong, they then begin to sneer at everyone.
Yeah.
That everyone's racist, they're bigoted, they're motivated by hate. Rory Stewart said, I thought this because I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
And instead of adjusting their worldview to fit reality, instead they just attack everyone.
They castigate everyone else.
Yeah.
But didn't Boris do well? I'm no fan of Boris.
No, he did.
But he sat in that room with all these anti-pathetic human beings, and he handled them with consummate gentlemanly behaviour.
And he showed why, actually, he's rather a good politician.
He's a damn good politician.
Yes, Stormy really slipped into insanity that night. There was another clip where she starts saying, "Would you allow your daughter in a room with Donald Trump, Boris? Would you? Would you?" And Boris... But then Boris ends up going, "Yeah, I would, because I met him and he's a really nice guy."
Yeah.
It's like, what are you trying to say? You were getting paid to be
surely
in
the
a room
point
with
is,
him,
would you let Stormy Daniels in a room with your son?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. She was the one that had sex with Donald Trump. I don't think Emily Maitlis has. She's the only one on that panel, I think, pretty much that had.
And I'm sure Boris hasn't.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. But also, Emily Maitlis had to get thrown off the panel for swearing because she was so grumpy. And Christy Gurumurthy had to apologise on her behalf and all of this. And it was just absolutely and utterly ridiculous. So, I mean... we could go on for the entire show.
But entire network, MSNBC had a kind of meltdown today. So that I forget her name, but the person that was actually announcing the results in MSNBC, you could see that her speech, her whole kind of approach to the piece, she was almost suicidal. Having to actually announce the fact that Donald Trump had won. It was
I don't know what's happened to journalism in America. There doesn't seem to be anybody who could just do a report without having a view which skews it completely.
But Mike, what it does is confirm to all of us that have been saying this for years that the mainstream media are ultimately extremely biased towards the left. Now we know it's true.
Yeah, they totally are. And I mean, people have been at pains to point out that the polls weren't just the way they were by accident, that the polls didn't want to show that Donald Trump was winning. And I don't know why that would be. I mean, if the polls are the polls, why don't you just tell us what they say? As opposed to trying to sort of fudge it. Because at one point, going into the election, we did an overnight show, obviously, and at one point, around about 1 o'clock, people were saying, well, it's either very, very close or it's a landslide for Kamala. And I mean, I just watched, just before we came in here, a very funny clip, which we haven't got, unfortunately, of CNN, where they've got a big map, you know, but they like to show the map where it's all blue and red and everything else. And they go, and now we can show you exactly how well Kamala's doing in some of the places where she's getting more votes than they did in 2020. And they go, and there's literally nothing on it.
Just a grey
It's completely blank.
It's a grey map.
It's completely blank. And the guy goes, what, nothing at all? What, not one county? It's like, no, nothing. She's not up anywhere.
Our thoughts and prayers should also be with Ann Seltzer. You know who Ann Seltzer
is? Oh, yes.
So she's a very, was.
Otherwise known as Alka.
Yeah, Alka, now. So she was, and I say was, I emphasise that, a very well-respected pollster who said a couple of days before the election that in Iowa in particular, I think Harris was 8% ahead. That didn't happen. So she's been completely discredited, and it just shows that, these polls are just kind of effectively depends how you ask the question and who you ask.
And they don't know how to talk to Trump voters. So the one pollster I saw him interviewed who actually called it right, the British pollsters, they said they're harder to reach because they tend to be blue collar and they've got jobs where they can't just pick up the phone and talk to you for an hour. So those aren't the people they're speaking to. These polls massively
Sorry, you're saying that's opposed to people on the left that don't work?
Yes, or they're doing office jobs, or they're working from home. That sort of thing.
Candice, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just asking us.
But he said, like, they had to find novel ways of reaching these people, and the mainstream pollers tend to oversample Democrats, and they continually do this.
Yes. Well, I mean, they've all had trouble doing that. I mean, the Labour Party don't know what a working person is anymore either. You can't even define it. When you ask them, well, who's a working person, you get a different answer depending on who you ask. You know. Anyway, let's have a look at what Kamala had to say after it all happened.
I wonder if McDonald's is hiring. Should I text Trump and be like, hi, how are you? Why don't people like me? I got a lot of free time now. I don't even know if I want to be president. Should I run again? Taylor Swift, Beyonce. And where are you guys now? Okay, because I'm in a basement drinking wine alone.
Yeah, Beyonce. I wanted to do one of those, you know, those Norwegian commentator-style rants, you know. Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Barack Obama, you know, your boys took one hell of a beating, you know, one of those. Because you could just do the whole list.
I love the token glass of wine there. Read into that what you will.
Absolutely.
It was ridiculous, though, how Kamala just left her supporters out in the cold. She did what Hillary did in 2016. She was probably bawling in the bathroom like we heard that Hillary had done, crying her eyes out, which, you know, I get, but, you know, you kind of did it to yourself. She didn't show up, and all her fans were there waiting for her, and she was a no-show. And then obviously she came to Howard just yesterday and made her little speech, her word salad. But it was really like, I think we all made the right decision. You didn't even come out and thank anyone.
And they stopped talking to the press at about 3 a.m. our time. So like quite early on. About 10 o'clock in the
knowing what the result was
time. Yeah, absolutely. Ben, over to you.
Well, it's on the same vein, I'm afraid.
Yes, good. It's all right.
And so my first choice for Plank of the Week is David Lammy, who specialises in identity politics. And, of course, we came across this as Brexiteers first in 2016 when he likened Brexiteers to Nazis. Do you remember that? It was Sunday morning. I was having my coffee, watching Sunday morning television, and he likened me to a Nazi. He's never met me. And he's done the same with Donald Trump. He's likened him to a Nazi, to a fascist, a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
White supremacist, maybe.
A white supremacist, a misogynist, a felon, and everything else. And now he has the great opportunity as Foreign Secretary to put all that right. Put his arm of friendship round Donald Trump's shoulders and say, actually, Donald, I didn't mean any of that.
Yeah.
I love you to bits.
Yes.
Can we please have that special relationship?
Right. But, of course, the great thing is that he's already seen Trump, and Trump actually had an opportunity to stick it to him because when Starmer went over to see Biden, they then went and had dinner at Trump Tower with Trump, Keir Starmer and David Lammy. Can you imagine? And I see the vision here of Donald Trump just making fun of them.
Yeah.
And when he was asked later about Lammy, you know, because people were hoping he was going to give him stick the boot in, he just went, yeah, Lammy's a great guy. He's a great guy. Because he knows he's got him now. He's just call him up, and he's now he's his bitch, basically. Because Lammy will now do anything to sort of not upset him. No. So he'll just have to go, hey, Lammy, you know, what are you going to do with it? You know, and he'll just do it because he won't have anywhere else to go.
And it really reveals Lammy, doesn't it?
It does.
For the ideological pygmy that he is.
Yeah.
And he's got, like Dawn Butler and so many others in the Labour Party and indeed the Conservative Party, really they've got nothing to offer the country other than division and identity politics.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons they accuse everyone of being racist is because they know their arguments don't hold water. So when you haven't got an argument that you can genuinely prevail with, you have to attack the opposition for who they are.
Yeah.
Go for the colour of their skin or, you know, castigate them as far-right extremists, white supremacists, whatever it is.
Right.
And so David Lammy's got to be up there. I mean,
he has to be.
I mean, the Guardian may have a job.
Yeah.
Perpetually.
He is. He has
perpetually.
He's been making a lot of appearances on Plank of the Week since he's been Foreign Secretary.
We can feel sorry for the Guardian for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
But just imagine what it's like to be David Lammy.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's have a look at him protesting the state visit of Donald Trump.
We see you when you side with neo-Nazis who are marching on the streets of Charlottesville. And we stand against this hard right solidarity that you are forging across much of the Western world. We see you, Donald Trump. Just as people gathered to protest against the Iraq war, so too do we gather to protest this state visit of Donald Trump.
Yeah, good one, David.
Nice.
Well done. That would be the Iraq war that we were taken into by the Labour Prime Minister, Tony Blair.
Absolutely.
Right, OK. Yeah. Also, this hasn't been given much publicity, but I found this from Keir Starmer back in 2019, which he tweeted, right? An endorsement for Donald Trump tells you everything you need to know about what is wrong with Boris Johnson's politics and why he isn't fit to be Prime Minister. That's from Starmer. Right? Wes Streeting said in 2017, Trump is such an odious, sad little man. Imagine being proud to have that as your president.
Yeah. But you know what I really love about this?
Guys.
What I really love about this is that the Labour Party, having taken this country down a path which we all know is so disastrous for the United Kingdom, is now going to have to look across the Atlantic and it's going to have to change direction.
Yeah.
It may not like it, but it's going to have to grow up on defence, grow up on security, grow up on immigration.
Yeah.
It's going to have to take Trump's lead.
And on trade, by the way, as well.
On trade, absolutely. Championing the United Kingdom. And that is terrific.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I kind of reflected as I got the results on, when was it, yesterday morning.
Yeah.
I reflected on it. I couldn't quite believe it. And I was driving into the office and suddenly the enormity of the victory sank in.
Yeah.
And I breathed a huge sigh of relief.
You didn't burst into tears or anything?
No, I didn't know. I was like...
Unlike a lot of the Lefty.
Yeah. in the car as well. I'm so upset I'm driving and I'm crying. Don't drive and cry.
You can just imagine many members of the Labour front bench on the phone to Google almost saying, hey, look, there's a video from a year ago that I really want you to take down if you possibly could. Airbrush history.
Sorry.
But I mean, just how dim is Starmer? I mean, this is ridiculous that he didn't foresee this happening.
Right.
And I think it's actually really scary because, you know, Trump is pretty strong about wanting to put tariffs on the UK, wanting to do different things around trade, as you said. And now that Lammy's the person who's going to be doing these negotiations with his little sneakers on, I'm a little bit concerned.
Yes.
I'm very concerned.
I
But
think
at least,
so.
you know, we can breathe a sigh of relief.
Let's go back to Kemi Badenoch, because she asked a question in her first job as Prime Minister's loyal opposition in PMQ. So look.
Did the Foreign Secretary take that opportunity to apologise for making derogatory and scatological references, including, and I quote, Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, he is also a profound threat to the international order. And if he did not apologise, will the Prime Minister do so now on his behalf? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not distance himself from the remarks made by the Foreign Secretary, and I'm very sure that President Trump will soon be calling to thank him for sending all of those North London Labour activists to campaign for his opponent.
That's the other one. You know, thank God that Labour were helping them with the election. They did help them. They got Kamala to get about 20% of the vote, just like he did. So, you know, very good. Now, finally, we can't leave David Lammy without, I'm afraid, revisiting the greatest clip of all time. David Lammy on Mastermind.
Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father, Henry VIII, in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI. In chemistry, what French word is used for a tube for transferring measured amounts of liquids?
Oh, dear.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, ideological pygmy add intellectual pygmy.
I mean, he literally didn't get any question right, and the only ones he didn't get wrong were the ones he passed on. I mean, he literally doesn't know anything.
And one's about food, I remember. He got the cheese right. That's it.
And he claimed that Marie Antoinette won, like, the Nobel Prize for physics.
He mistook Marie Antoinette and Marie Curie.
Yes.
It's easy to confuse the two. You know, I can't remember. Marie Antoinette, Marie Curie, you know.
And let's not forget the police clip.
Maria Callas, you know, the opera singer.
Let's not forget probably the second greatest Lammy clip, which is the police officer one.
Oh, yeah.
Where he talks about, we haven't seen a policeman around here for ages. One literally.
Oh, my God, yeah. Samara, over to you.
Yes, well, there are a lot of celebrity endorsements for Kamala, which really helped galvanise support for her campaign.
Yeah, it did great, that.
Really helped her across the line with that election. But
Barbara
Cardi...
Streisand was the most surprising one for me.
I've been trolling her.
She was like, she's 82, right? She's going, he's too old. You're going, you're 82.
You're still getting up.
She tweeted yesterday, I have no words. I said, well, I hope you're going to stop singing then.
I said, what about the way... I retweeted it going, what about the way we were? You know, she was in film. She was... Anyway, go on.
No, it was... So, yeah, all the celebrities really helped. And Cardi B was probably the main one. Obviously, she's formerly a stripper. She was a sex worker, and I'm not trying to downgrade that, but it definitely didn't help with her work on the teleprompter. Have we got the clip of...
We have. Let's have a look.
1 second, guys. 1 second.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Okay. I need patience over here.
Is she
oh, my
married?
God. I presume Patience is her assistant who should be fixing everything.
I've got no idea what Harris lost.
Yeah, I think it's really concerning because if she really supported Harris, she could have probably just spoken off the cuff and said, you know, vote for this woman. She's going to, I don't know, protect your rights for abortion. I think that's the only thing I can remember Harris campaigning on.
Right.
And the only thing Cardi probably could not remember. So, yeah, I think it comes to a bigger issue of celebrity support. It doesn't do what it used to do. We don't have those Obama years where he'd go and play basketball on the courts with a couple of his fellow celebrities, Jay-Z, and it would just sling him across the line and win him an election. It doesn't do that anymore. In fact, the people that got out for Trump were the working class Hispanics,
the real people.
whites, blacks,
real
people who have real issues in their pocket at the moment and cannot actually pay for things. And they're not looking to the liberal Hollywood elite for who to vote for.
Did you hear the Beyonce story? Apparently Beyonce was at one of the Harris events on the basis, as they told the audience, that she was going to perform. Sing. She went on for 2 minutes, spoke, and then left.
Yeah. And they all turned up thinking that she was going to sing.
They got baited in with, there's going to be a Beyonce concert.
For free.
No Beyonce concert for you, Kamala. No. Yeah.
People don't look to these pop stars for political opinions. Although I do find it interesting that I think Elon Musk people did respect his opinion.
Yeah, but he's not a pop star.
He's a smart guy and the richest man in the world.
Yes, and it was Bill Ackman as well, the other billionaire.
Capital guy.
I mean, a lot of them being very open now.
Well, the good thing, I mean, when Trump finished and gave his acceptance speech and declared himself to be president, which I thought was brilliant, he didn't bother waiting for anybody else to do it. He just went, I've won. And he had Dana White, who's a really, really important guy as well in American sport and in American business. You know, started UFC, incredibly successful guy, and people, particularly blue-collar people who watch UFC, love him. And, you know, he was on stage with him going, here's Dana White. We want more people like this. And we do.
Yeah, and what we see is this trend of people now idealising businessmen and successful people over pop stars and people who get on a stage or get in front of a camera and say a couple of lines that they've memorised.
Well, my favourite one was J-Lo, who was in floods of tears about the idea that Trump might come into power. And somebody tweeted out that, you know, she seems very much more upset about Donald Trump than she is about the P. Diddy parties that she used to attend.
And as a consequence, what happens to the Latino vote?
Trump smashed goes the other way.
I don't think I'm going to trust J-Lo's opinion on who to vote for. I don't think she's been very good at picking men in the past.
No, not really.
She's never really had a good track record
exactly
with
right.
that. So
exactly
no.
right. Well, listen, we've got coming up yet more members of the Labour government. You might be not surprised to hear. And also, this is just such an incredible plank of the week. I don't know where to begin, but we'll be coming back right after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here, of course, for your delectation all the way through the weekend. I'm going to go for Keir Starmer first up, and you might be asking me, well, there's so many reasons. You can all look very puzzled at me going, well, what's he done now? Because, I mean, it's literally any number of things he could be Plank of the Week for, but I'm going to give it to him for scrapping tuition fees. Oh, sorry, no, he didn't scrap them. No, he meant to scrap them, but instead he ended up putting them up.
What about university tuition fees, then? Will you remain committed to scrapping them in your first term?
Pledges, Andrew. So the answer to these questions is yes.
So university tuition fees being scrapped will be in a Starmer manifesto?
Yes, that's why it's
the next election.
Here we are now with the new definition of the word pledge. When you say pledge, it doesn't actually mean that it's something you're going to do. It means something you're not going to do. Yeah. So it's the complete opposite, right? So in addition to all of the other things you turned on, the pensioners' winter fuel allowance, the fact that, we're not going to have a close relationship with Europe, the fact that all sorts of other costs of energy are going up. He was going to cap energy prices, you might remember. So now he's going to put tuition fees up by not a huge amount, about 250 quid, but they're going up to like £9,500 now, which for an awful lot of kids is going to make it a lot more difficult to borrow the money. Yeah. But it then turns out that not only is it a bad idea and a broken promise, but it's actually going to end up costing us, the taxpayers, even more money. Of course. Possibly as much as 90 million quid, I think. Yeah. Because a lot of these loans that get given out never get paid back. And not only do they give them out to domestic students, they give loans to foreign students who do the course and never bother paying it back. No. So, I mean, we are subsidising so many people to go to university in order for the people who run the universities to make six-figure salaries, £500,000 for some vice-chancellors.
They're terrible universities with terrible degrees. Once you go onto the job market, no one wants to give you a good job for it. You spend 3 years and end up racking up a debt of, what is it now? Something like...
It's about 40,000 quid.
40K. Yeah. And I promise you, I know people who are doing jobs that they could have done if they'd left school at 16. It's ridiculous.
It is. It's totally ridiculous. But again, down to Tony Blair, who made higher education a business. It was, when I went to university many years ago, it was something like 5% of the population that went to university. And, which was, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, it just was the facts,
but
right?
It did mean that we had skill sets that we no longer have because they went into trades. Yeah. And we can't fulfil our own trades. No. So when they talk about the skill shortages, which requires us to have unbridled immigration, it's because everyone's doing media studies at some polytechnic.
Yeah, at North London University, which used to be North London Poly.
Yeah. I mean, and, by the way, just to enumerate it, we give about 20 billion a year in student loans and we write off about 8 billion a year. Right. I mean, the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. And this extra 250 quid will, in the life of the loan, equate to an extra 40... Did you say that? £40,000 per head? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary.
It is. And also, the fact that Tony Blair made all of these universities into businesses, they're now all squealing like pigs because the foreign students are not coming anymore. Do you know why? Because the government said you can't bring 55 dependents with you. So, if you come to study at university in England, you have to come on your own. So they're not coming now, and so which tells you all you need to know about the system. They were basically just using it as an immigration system. Yeah. The people were bringing their families here, settling here, doing a couple of years at university, and then walking away.
Well, and also to keep people off of the youth unemployment statistics, of course. Now
what do they do in your neck of the woods, Samara?
In Australia. Yeah. Well, I literally couldn't even get a spot in Australia. I got a spot in a great law school there, but I was pushed out because actually they had to make way for internationals. And then I moved here to do my university because it was easier for me to get in here than it was in Australia. And that's because in Australia they pay even more. The internationals are paying over 100 grand for their degrees per year. And so, it's really a catastrophe what's going on, and it is an easy visa route. The international university that I ended up going to, most students wouldn't even show up. They would bring family members with them. And they
never turn up.
Yeah, never turn up. They'd go tap their cards so that they had the 70% attendance rate that they had to fulfill. It was all a calamity, and the university was just rubbing its hands together and with glee because it was a literal cash cow. And we had a bunch of professors that also wouldn't show up that were on massive paycheck.
And of course
So
now...
It really, that is the reality of what you're saying, Mike. I can back it up 100%.
No, I'm sure you're right. I've got a son that's currently at university, and after about the first few weeks he was there, I said, how are you getting on? He said, well, I'm doing all right, but it's, don't always make all the lectures. And I went, how many have you got? And he went, 3. And I said,
3 a week?
I said, what, 3 a day? He went, no, 3 a week.
Yeah, accurate.
3 a week? He doesn't make all of them. It's a bit struggle.
My son did 2 essays a term.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not...
A term?
A term.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is not an education.
Why are we condensing 3 years down to 2?
It should be. They could do it all in one.
Yeah, well, one.
Or maybe 18 months.
For the same money.
Because they want to make money. That's
you cut the tuition burden by 66%.
Yeah. One more. Sorry, go on.
No, but while we, talk about 3 classes a week, China, Russia, they're all getting ahead with their systems, and they're all putting, 40,000 engineering and computer science students through per year, and actually boosting their productivity in their country. Whereas we're just, as you said, media degrees
and here,
English literature, which is
here
fine,
there are
but it's not
degree
going to get us
courses
ahead.
in things like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, there are. There are.
Really?
Let's just, we've got to move on in a second. I just want to show you one more piece of footage because we got this just the other day. Keir Starmer decided to go to Hungary. I mean, David Lammy's gone off to South Africa and Nigeria this week. They love travelling. Here he is. Now, lots of different people arriving. There's Giorgia Meloni getting greeted warmly. There's somebody else getting greeted warmly. Not sure who that is, actually. There's Macron getting out. He's getting a nice hug from old Schulz, the German Chancellor. Here comes Keir. Nobody wants to talk to him. Look at this. There's nobody literally doing anything. Nobody's shaking his hand. Nobody's embracing him. I mean, he's like Billy No Mate.
Ostracised in Europe.
Already ostracised. He's only been in 3 months.
Well, they've got
brilliant.
Good judges of character.
Yeah. Russell, over to you. Talking of planks.
My second one, I'm sorry, it's a Labour venture again.
Listen.
I apologise, but we just can't help it, right?
Yeah.
So this one is Ed Miliband for something that I think is absolutely hilarious, but also incredibly deceptive.
Yes.
So Ed Miliband, of course, the climate change zealot, I think it's probably fair to say, climate change extremist, and
Is he Minister for Climate Change or something, isn't he?
Climate change and net zero.
Yes.
So, of course, he has said that we will, as a country, get to net zero by 2030, which we all know is completely impossible.
Of course we won't.
The grid and all the resources, the infrastructure is just not there.
Well, all this week, I think the grid has shown that we've been taking the energy from something like 80% plus fossil fuels.
Yes, indeed.
Right?
So
there's no wind.
But Ed Miliband has written in The Guardian and put out on his official Twitter account just this week that he says, a rebuke to those who said clean power by 2030 was unachievable.
Yeah.
They were wrong. I am right. And what he goes on to say in The Guardian is that he has come across what he calls an independent body that has verified all of his plans, that it is not only possible, but also sustainable and desirable to get to net zero in this country by 2030. That independent body is called the National Energy System Operator, NESO. Now, guess who the biggest shareholder of NESO is?
Ed Miliband?
Ed Miliband.
I thought that was a joke. No, I wasn't expecting that to be yes.
Ed Miliband is the Secretary of State, as I'm sure you will see if you check. So far from it being an independent body verifying his ridiculous harebrained claims, basically the only people that are verifying that we can get to net zero, Ben, by 2030 is Ed Miliband himself.
That is really serious.
It's deceptive.
It's really serious. He should be sacked on that
Isn't
alone.
that corrupt?
Yeah.
It is corrupt.
It's another lie.
I mean, they've redefined, of course,
it's
they've redefined.
Fraud perpetrated against the British people.
It's a Labour lie. If you look at Companies House, you will see the biggest shareholder is indeed the Secretary of State for net zero.
They've redefined the word corruption, haven't they? I mean, also this week I saw that Starmer had issued new guidelines for accepting freebies, and that basically he's telling all of his cabinet ministers that they should think seriously before accepting any freebies in case it might be seen to be a little bit inappropriate. Well, how about you just say don't accept any freebies?
Yeah, or in brackets, just don't get caught. Put it down as office expenses, like most of them are doing anyway.
Because we haven't talked about it very much lately because there's so much other stuff going on. This is a man who doesn't even buy his own clothes, doesn't buy his own glasses. His
doesn't buy his wife's clothes.
Doesn't buy his own wife's clothes. I mean, Angela Rayner lately, she's also been having a go at Donald Trump. Rachel Reeves, she got some clothes as well. I mean, even Lisa Nandy. I mean, they're all at it. You can't take
and
any,
they all dress
anything
so
seriously.
badly.
They do.
And they still dress so badly.
Yeah, I know. I'm beginning to think that Lord Ali might actually be some kind of, mole for the opposition. He's come in there and kind of destroying the Labour Party from within, with
he's got a brilliant sense of humour.
Absolutely right. Let's have a look at Ed Miliband in slightly previous incarnation before he got back into government.
Is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So here I am. on the latest stage of my GB Energy tour.
GB Energy.
How, can you not take him seriously?
I mean, unbelievable. Do you remember when they went to his house and discovered that he had not only one kitchen, but 2 kitchens?
Yeah.
One for the nanny.
Man of the people.
Right. Man of the people. North London, absolutely brilliant. Right, Candice, over to you.
Yes, so this is also something to do with Labour.
Yeah.
We're on a bit of a roll
I'm afraid
here.
it's just the way it goes with the government. You get slammed every single day.
So this is their very spiteful policy about putting VAT on private school fees. But they've upset the apple cart, they've made a big mess, and now they're having to do a bit of
And they're insisting,
clean-up.
despite the fact that they were asked if they could delay it a little bit, they're insisting on starting it in January.
Yes, yes. So the latest problem to arise from this, which they didn't foresee because it sounds like they didn't even think about this for a second, other than in sort of a like, oh, we're going to get them way, is that diplomats working from the Foreign Office are obviously sending their kids to boarding schools while they're travelling all around the world. And this VAT rise is going to cost them a fortune.
Yeah.
So the Foreign Office has written to the government, has written to the private schools and said, would you consider giving our diplomats a discount?
Oh, they've got some cheek, haven't they?
Yes. I mean, so there's not only that, there's military families as well. That looks like they're not going to be exempt from the fees, although it's going to cost them a fortune. What's that going to mean for the military?
Right, so go and serve your country abroad and we just want to charge you more tax.
Yes,
Brilliant.
yeah. And so the only way they're going to be able to afford it is if the Foreign Office pays them more.
Yeah.
So that means government salaries going up, that means more from the taxpayer.
And I think there's also another inadvertent result of the VAT levying, which is that all the capital expenditure that schools have done over the last few years... 10 years, they can now recover VAT on that. So there'll be a big bill levied on the exchequer.
And that would be bigger than the VAT that they recoup.
Yeah. Again, like every single one of these measures that they brought in, they clearly haven't thought through the process of what will happen in the end. You know, like even the farming inheritance tax thing, people are going to get away with that. The same goes for any family who don't want to move a pension. You just move it before you reach a certain age. I mean, everybody's finding ways around it, and it's costing. I think Eton are going to claim back millions and millions of pounds in VAT. Because there's a loophole in the new law. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they have this sort of very simplistic view as well of who sends their children to private schools. They think it's all the toffs and, you know, people in top hats and, you know, they're looking down at the working class. Meanwhile, a lot of people send their kids to private schools if they've got special needs. Because they can't be catered for in the state schools. So I know there's now a court case coming up. A woman's actually going to take them to court.
We had her on the show, actually.
And it's sad that it's come to that, but I think that's what's going to happen. It's the same with the Free Speech Union as well, challenging Bridget Phillipson suspending the free speech law. You can't just do that. The executive cannot just override.
Well, they're getting
like
sued by the Unite Union over the Winston fuel payments for pensioners because the Unite Union are actually against it. You know, and everything they do, everything they touch,
they can't get it right.
It's a crap, doesn't it? They just can't get anything right. So, anyway, coming up in the next section, Ben, you're going to be talking about the European Union. We've got a story from America which will tickle you, I think, if nothing else. And of course, we'll have to decide who's going to win Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. Ben, over to you for a more Trump-related panic.
It is Trump-related panic, but this time on an entire continental basis.
Yes.
The EU has been vocally panicked about Trump for the last couple of months. And they've been getting ready for a Trump administration. And what they fear is, quite rightly, they should fear it, that he's going to impose 10% tariffs on European Union goods. He's going to make them actually pay for their own membership of NATO. Woe betide them for actually putting their hands in their back pockets to be protected by the Americans. He's going to require them to enforce their borders. He's going to export a lot of the ideology which he stands for onto the European Union and which they stand utterly against. The other thing that they fear is that he's going to put 60% tariffs on Chinese goods. They want to go on buying Chinese goods. They want to do it, as much as they possibly can. And they fear that this is going to damage global trade. What they haven't taken on board is that this unfettered global trade has effectively enriched China and geopolitically destabilized the world. In the pursuit of cheap tack from China, what we've got is a globally unstable world. And an unstable world. And so the EU is in a panic, and I'm delighted to see them in a panic. And I hope it makes Starmer think twice about his hidden, not so hidden agenda.
Yes.
Of taking.
Well, isn't it funny as well that when we talk about, you know, whether or not Trump is going to impose tariffs on Britain, which I don't think he will actually in the final analysis, you know, suddenly America's our biggest trading partner. You know, all these people that want to remain in the European Union are always going on about this big trading partner right next door to us. Yeah, but actually we don't sell them that much stuff anyway. But so, you know, America's much more important to us.
But the EU are also famous, Ben, aren't they, for tariffs?
Yes.
On anyone who's outside the EU.
Well, no, it's worse than that. They're actually, they operate in a pretty corrupt way in places like Africa.
Yes.
Because, you know, Alex Phillips has told me about this.
Exploitatively.
They exploit countries, entire countries, and go, right, well, your coffee, you're going to give it all to us, and this is how much we're going to pay you, and you can't sell it anywhere else. Yeah. And they buy all sorts of agricultural goods, all sorts of fish from these places, and they literally kind of just bottom out the market, take everything, and tell them to just like it or lump it.
And instead of allowing these countries to grow through commerce and trade, they just want to give them aid.
Yes.
And the aid always goes to governments that use it, that are corrupt. It doesn't go to the people. But people who want to start businesses and like brilliant farmers and stuff, they can't sell to the EU.
Right. Have a look at what Guy Verhofstadt had to say. Europeans need to be frank. The free world will be led by a convicted felon and demagogue who doesn't share our values but wants to destroy them. Liberal democracy is in peril, he says. And then he goes, is Europe prepared? No. Can it be? And will we see real leadership we desperately need? Hopefully.
Because, of course, the EU is utterly democratic and
yeah.
also beyond reproach when it comes to criminality.
Yeah.
It's just a complete joke. This man has just received the biggest popular mandate of a Republican president since George Bush.
Right.
And they're castigating him for standing against democracy.
But they themselves are not elected.
And they themselves are not elected.
I'm really happy to see someone come out against China. I feel like we're in a comfortable position now. And also, it was really funny on Joe Rogan's podcast, Trump revealed a conversation he'd had with Macron about tariffs and said that Macron tried to put a bunch of tariffs on US companies in France. And he got on the phone straight away to Macron and he said, that's fine. I'm just going to put 1,000% tariffs on all your wines and champagnes coming into the US.
Yeah.
Macron straight away backed away from all the tariffs on his side. That's how it's done.
That's
I mean, honestly.
High five me on that one.
Literally. Strong man. I'm glad we've got that back in power.
Because in the end, that's the
it's
only...
unorthodox, but I love it.
It's the same with places like Iran. You know, the reason that Iran didn't do anything when Trump was in charge was he's put on their throat. And as soon as Biden got in, he went, here's $600 million. What do you think they did with it? Bought a load of drones and started firing them at Israel.
Where are the COVID reparations? I mean, you know, the Chinese invented COVID and distributed it.
Yeah.
And we've just gone, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's fine, because we don't want to upset the Chinese.
And it cost the globe trillions and trillions.
Well, we're still paying for it.
Yeah.
We're still paying for it.
But they've got off the hook.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely staggering. Samara, down to one of my favourite stories of the week, and it's all about a squirrel.
Yes. Look, the squirrel that the death might have won Trump the election. I'm going to say it.
Yep.
Just going to come out there. But I think, look, Peanut, rest in peace. He got killed by the New York DEC. He was a very famous internet squirrel.
Right.
He brought a lot of joy to millions and millions of people. And the New York State, which has nothing better to do, because they really have such a clean community there with no crime.
Oh, yeah, no problems.
No issues.
No illegal migrants roaming the streets.
No, nothing like that. No rats. No rats that they can
homeless, no
exterminate.
fentanyl addiction.
Yeah. They choose to go into this poor man called Mark Longo's house on a Saturday evening. About 30 of them apparently went in, sort of
looking for a
bashed
squirrel.
away his wife and murdered, murdered Peanut the Squirrel.
Wow.
Okay?
Let's have a look. We got a news story. Let's have a look.
Mark Longo says he was blindsided on Wednesday morning when agents from the State Department of Environmental Conservation came looking for his famous squirrel. Peanut racked up a combined 3 million followers on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Longo says he believes Peanut's fame led to someone filing a complaint.
They sent 6 to 8 officers to my house from Albany to confiscate a squirrel and a raccoon, and it was signed off on a search warrant.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's nuts, in fact.
Yeah,
Very good.
It is nuts. I mean, the New York State, it just shows where their priorities lie. It's all this red tape surrounding everything that has to be done now. And yeah, he didn't have a license to have that pet. That was the whole root cause as to why Peanut was euthanized. But, you know, he did. I mean, it was, Peanut. But it just shows where New York's priorities are and why that city has literally gone to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it.
Right.
I'm sure you've been there recently.
I mean, it tells you everything as well about what's wrong with these kind of organisations, these what you can be the state-run or national-run organisations where they're full of people who don't understand what's going to happen if they do something.
Well,
like nobody stands in the office and goes, "What? So you're going to go after this squirrel, which has got 3 million followers on TikTok, and you're going to confiscate it and kill it? Why exactly? Nobody asked the question. I mean, what on earth?
Do they not have PR agencies?
Well, they obviously don't. But they love kicking.
Peanut does, but it just shows that the resources are completely in the wrong place. Go clean up your streets, New York, before killing this poor little squirrel.
Even if they had to take it, which is in itself ridiculous and outrageous, yes, they should have other better things to do. Couldn't they just release it into the wild, for goodness sake?
Well, I said to Samara just before we started the show, I said, how do they know it was the real Peanut? Maybe there's another, maybe a bit like Saddam Hussein. There's a couple of them. There's 2 or 3. They all look the same. Tell the squirrel. How do you know it's the right squirrel?
Yeah.
Maybe Peanut lives.
The way that poor man's wife was crying on the TMZ interview was it was tragic. It's a tragedy, and rest in peace.
And it was a massive story, wasn't it? I mean, the fact that it was even on TMZ, you kind of go in, it's a squirrel.
This is why we must.
People run them over every day.
This is why we must never support assisted dying.
Right.
You can imagine where this goes, right?
Yeah, you can. But
yeah, that's right.
For Peanut, imagine when it's drowning.
I bet Kevin O'Sullivan had to have a day off, didn't he?
They took Granny out.
Yeah. Any kind of animal that dies, they can't have
off the day.
Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Right, finally, we've got one more to go, and it's mine. We're going to do it. Coming up next. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. This is the bit where we decide who is going to win. It's going to be a very tough decision. I may have to put it out to tender this week because I'm not sure I can decide. But I've got one more to offer you just before, and it's not actually the government, but it's the NHS. The NHS, of course, one of the big winners in Rachel Reeves' budget last week. She decided that she was going to hand the NHS billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of pounds. 20 billion unconditionally without any reforms being promised, despite the fact that once again, the pledge was made by Wes Streeting. We will not give the NHS any more money unless they reform. Sorry? Here's 20 billion. I mean, it's just another lie.
Another pledge that's just evaporated.
I'm actually seriously considering on my show doing Labour's lie of the day. Because there is one every single day. Every single day. I mean, Rachel started this week with Rachel Reeves saying that she was wrong to say that she wasn't going to put taxes up.
Ridiculous.
Well, no, that's not wrong. That's a lie, actually. Yeah. Anyway, so not only have they given this money for free to the NHS, they've got no idea what the NHS are going to do with it. But we've discovered already what some of it is going to be going to, and it's going to be going to paying consultants who get paid already well in excess of 6 figures for doing what apparently turns out to be a 2 or 3 day week because they can't work 5 days. So every time they are asked to do some more work to get the backlog down for operations, right, they're having to be taken on and paid overtime. And it turns out that they're paid overtime because their contract only employs them for 3 days. So it's not really overtime, it's actually just working 5 days a week, But the overtime bill for some of them is as high as £200,000 a year.
What, for an individual?
Yes, for individual consultants who are already making in excess of 150,000. So they're basically working a 5 day week now if they want to.
Where do you get these jobs? Can I apply?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, just tell them you're a doctor. There's so many. They're looking for doctors. They probably just bring you in and put the white coat on, and away you go. Cut that guy open. And even if you kill him, it's not a problem because they've got lawyers. Negligence. They pay out hundreds of millions in negligence every single year. Just dress up as Lucy Letby or something. I mean, but the bottom line is, these guys are absolutely milking the system. And then it turns out that the rest of the money, the billions, are going to be paid to agencies because agencies have now taken over basically nurses' rotas, right? So you've got nurses that work 2 or 3 days a week and then go out the front door and come back in dressed as an agency worker to do the exact same job, except this time they get paid more like 10 times the amount.
So almost like a nurse could wake up one morning and say, I'm not coming in today.
No.
So the agency then rings them back and says, I know you're not coming in, but do you want to come in under a separate guise and we'll pay you another 40 quid an hour?
Well, the NHS will say, can you supply us with 2 nurses today? And then you get the one who wasn't coming in.
Yes.
Yeah. And you go, hi, how's it going? How much are you making today?
I was, but not anymore.
Yeah. Today I'm not going to bill you the usual £100 a shift. I'm going to bill you £1,000 a shift. And about 500 of it's going to go to the agency.
But let's not forget that 20 billion is our money.
It is our money.
Not government money.
It's not government money. This is the problem. And again, I mean, people that tell me that it's not fair to criticise doctors, it's actually the system. Well, yeah, but they're taking advantage of the system. So I think the plank, in this is the NHS because they don't seem to know what to do with money, other than just throw it at people.
Yes. I mean, that'll just disappear so quickly. Apparently, it's becoming quite a common thing in medicine now, and not just here, where doctors like to work the short weeks and they don't like to do the long hours.
Of course, you know. Who wouldn't? How would you like to work 3 days for £400,000 or 5?
Yeah.
But
if you work 5, you have another 200 grand.
But it's a complete shift in ethos. So older doctors used to say, this is a calling, I need to be there,
Absolutely.
you know, I've got to...
remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now they're like, no, my day finishes at 5 and that's it.
And let's not forget, the junior doctors are going to go back on strike in January, having already got 22% this year. They've warned us that that's not really enough. So in January, they'll be striking some more.
So let me ask the politician, Ben, as the politician, reforming the NHS is quite an easy thing to do, it sounds like, doesn't it?
Well, we had a number of reforms in our contract with the people, including giving tax relief on...
But this is basic stuff. It's just
It's
reorganising.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to give you our policy.
No, you don't have to be that complex. It's just, don't let doctors work 3 days a week and have 400 grand a year. Don't have a load of clipboard carriers. Don't have a load of consultants.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
And save billions.
And also,
then
if you want to know...
Bring matrons back.
Bring matrons back. Stop sending nurses to university.
Absolutely.
And stop making them have to qualify for a job that they can learn how to do on the job.
Get rid of all the diversity and inclusion.
And get all the people who are off sick, by the way, because the NHS is full of people who are off sick, bizarrely, and long-term off sick, and they haven't been in for weeks and weeks and weeks, but they still get paid.
Instead,
make them come back to work.
Just coming back to Candice's point, Starmer, in the employment bill that's going through Parliament, which will be the Employment Act, is embedding the European Working Time Directive that we opted out of, pretty much, when we were part of the European Union. And that's going to be foisted in, of course, the public sector, which will include doctors and nurses.
And, of course, if you ever want to know just how much they love to save people's lives and help people, take a walk around any hospital car park and go to the doctors section, and you'll see more Aston Martins and Lamborghinis and Ferraris than you'll ever see in Mayfair, because they're all driving these amazing cars.
Well, they can afford to buy them. They've also got the time to drive them, it seems.
They've loads of time to drive them. And, of course, if they don't fancy working that extra sort of, shift at the NHS, they can always go and be a consultant in the private sector, where they don't necessarily do operations, but they can earn a pretty penny in all sorts of plastic surgery kind of scenarios and all the rest of it, So it's a bonanza time for the NHS.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we are. I've no idea who we're going to pick. The woke political pundits for me is a good one, a very good one. And David Lammy. I don't know. What do you think?
But Lammy's won it a few times. I think the Lefty meltdown.
I think the Lefty meltdown actually maybe is the story of the week.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
And they're playing.
And it's still going to go on.
Yeah.
I mean, you say we don't get to do it very often. It'll go on for 4 years. The Guardian's told us, All right, so Candice, we give it to you. Plank of the week. Well done, the woke lefties. There we are. Planks of the week, the lefty woke meltdown, because Donald Trump has got 4 more years. It's going to be glorious.
It's hilarious. I haven't stopped laughing.
I know. It's absolutely fantastic. Russell Quirk, thank you very much. Candice, Ben, Samara, thank you very much indeed. We'll be back same time next week for more Plankery.